The Burros of Berea is a conversational podcast. We study the Bible and we talk about it.
Not all of us are of the same faith, and one of us doesn't actually have a faith.
And that's wonderful. We all love one another, and we're going to continue to talk about these things.
The things we believe in and the things we believe about what we read in the Bible. Not all of these are necessarily true. Some of it is opinion and speculation. Thank you for
listening and speculating with us.
There you go. That was good. Yes.
You are listening to the Burros of Berea.
Welcome back to the Burros of Berea. I am Rick Welch, and to my left is Billy Eye Candy Kimsey.
Like a sugar daddy, a wealth of sweetness.
You know,
it's definitely not the money.
It's all about the delivery.
I have been called a sugar daddy.
Really?
No. I thought it sounded cool.
I would be more like a Splenda daddy.
Yeah.
Like not sugar. Anyway.
Only on Halloween.
Yeah, or like stevia. I'm a stevia daddy.
I'm more like a sugar baby.
Yeah. And you just heard him straight out of Compton, Ralph Hicks.
Represent.
Behind the Glass, Rocket Man, Andy Bishop. Andy, you'll have to leave soon and go get Gregula.
Oh, yeah.
We are sans Gregula.
We're no cat today.
Yeah. Sarita, the Rita Edgerton.
Hola.
Jerry the Annihilator Lewis.
Hello.
Welcome back
got
in the
that much
studio,
energy.
everybody. I know.
She gets all that. When he comes around to you, he's always so excited.
I know. Because I wish that I could, maybe we just need to get on your keyboard and make her a special intro. Because I want like the wrestlers intro.
We could do it.
I don't want to use Gravediggers, but I like the Chicago Bulls intro.
I didn't know Gravediggers was an option.
Gravedigger, wasn't that his name? Gravedigger, the wrestler?
Oh, yeah.
What? Yeah.
Undertaker?
Undertaker.
Yeah. Gravedigger's the monster.
Yeah, he's the
truck.
monster
Yeah.
truck.
I bet she still has music intro.
Probably.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't believe it. We are finally getting back to the we're gonna finish the Esther series. Can you believe it?
Nope.
Nope. And what's amazing is that Esther is Lazarus.
Yeah,
just kidding.
I'm going to say
and
no.
is not coming back.
Rick, no spoilers. Come on.
Blame Lazarus. That's Andy's song. Well, we have a special guest in the studio today who is going to be with us for our finale. And his name is Charlton R. Carter III. Welcome, Charlton.
Hey.
Yeah, he is a listener. He's actually, we've been talking a little bit, and super great guy. He was in the area, and I was like, come on in and get him in the studio. So it was really cool. And you went to Granddad's Apples today?
I did.
What'd you think of that?
It's my favorite spot up here.
Yeah?
Yes, it
Came
is.
up. So you've been up here before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. You came up today from Augusta, Georgia.
Well, I was working there in Augusta, Georgia.
Yeah. Working there. So
Come on up.
I'm so glad you're here.
How many of those apple cider donuts did you bring me? That's what I want to know.
If I'd have knew ahead of time, I'd have brought you the whole box.
Yeah. He's doing good with the turning of the head, isn't he?
He is.
So, guys, I got some more feedback. I thought I'd read it. And I also got some fun stuff before we get too far. We're going to start and finish the Esther tonight. But what I wanted to do is read this some feedback here. I think you guys will find this very fun. All right. So, this comes from Rick Carter in Columbia, South Carolina. Do you guys remember him from the last time?
Yes.
You do? Here's what he says. Good morning, Burros. To my surprise, listening to the greatest podcast, I was fanboying out completely to get a shout out from the great Rick the Jelly Welch. I have never had a nickname. Well, except for I'm Rick Welch, beep, but I'm not doing that one. However, it was met with tremendous scrutiny, as if I was Snuffleupagus from early Sesame Street. Well, my Burrow friends, I am a real boy, and I hope I get the opportunity to see you in person soon. Hee-haw, y'all.
Oh.
I like the hee-haw, y'all. That's cool.
Hee-haw.
Yeah. So, Rita, I'm curious. Do you know how to read a room?
Yes.
I would like you to meet Rick Carter from Columbia, South Carolina.
Hey!
We do not know each other, but I responded to him, and I was like, did you hear the episode? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, they gave me a hard time and said it was sus. It was so sus. I was like,
Yeah.
I said, how would you like to make the trip? So he
Hey.
came all the way up from Columbia
Oh,
to
that's
be
amazing.
on the show.
Ta-da!
I was a little bit suspicious with the third. That was a bit press.
It is his real name.
That's
Charlton
legit.
Richard
It's all
Carl.
Really?
legit. Yes.
It is.
Look at that.
Yeah.
She even called your real name
I,
sus.
and see, no fun here.
Not trusting
No
of
fun.
anyone, I don't think.
No.
No, I, don't
I was
trust
right there
anyone
with her.
anymore.
Well, Rick, I'm glad that you're on the show.
Oh,
And
this
it
is
means
so
a lot.
exciting.
So we have a number one fan out of Fayetteville, Mary McLeod. We love her. She
Yep.
does write our newsletter now, which is coming out
that's
the 1st of October. And you are our number one fan out of Columbia,
Oh,
definitely,
Man. Oh, wow.
which is really cool. And he's kept up with it. And so it means a lot. I'm so glad you came up here.
Yeah, it's so
That was
exciting.
fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm still fanboying out.
He is a real boy. I am a real boy.
I'm a real boy.
How much did this cost?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Well, yeah, he was kind enough just to come on up and beat the hurricane and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get started, I have another thing. You guys remember last week we interviewed the Christian science fiction writer Brian Godawa. So I have
I
some
bet you got a
books-
few letters about him.
I didn't. Not yet. It hasn't been released.
Yep.
Really?
No.
I watched one of
Those
his
letters will
movies.
come out in the future. Huh?
Yeah, I bet you
I
will.
did watch one of his movies.
Did you watch Two End All Wars?
Yes.
What'd you think?
Oh,
Kiefer Sutherland was great.
Oh,
in
that's
that.
that's a great movie. That's the one I had seen.
that was so just.
Oh, absolutely.
Ugh.
So
Are these signed?
they are, and each of you get one. However, this is the full. Do you remember the one when he was talking about the? It was called the Chronicles of the Apocalypse. So we have all 4 of those books. So if you take the book, you're going to want to read book 1. You don't want to start in book 3, right? So he gave us the top 4 here, and but I want to read to you what he wrote in these books, if that's okay. All right.
Cool. Yeah.
So he says in The Tyrant, Rise of the Beast, Chronicles of the Apocalypse, Book 1, he says, to the boroughs of Berea, I like you jackasses.
Love it.
Brian. Remnant, Rescue of the Elect from Chronicles of the Apocalypse, the Apocalypse. Book 2, he says, to the boroughs of Berea from an onager of Abraham. That must be funny, but I don't know what it means. It's probably from the book. Resistant, Revolt of the Jews, Chronicles of the Apocalypse. Book 3, to the boroughs of Berea, keep on braying and hee-hawing for the Lord.
Amen.
Amen. I hear you, son. And then from the book Judgment, Wrath of the Lamb, Chronicles of the Apocalypse, Book 4, he says, to the boroughs of Berea, may God visit recompense upon the head of Rick for making me sign all of these books.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
then-
I like they're all personalized.
I do, yeah.
Recompense.
And
That's
so-
a good word.
It is. So I also got the
Recompense?
book Psalm 82 and End Times Bible Prophecy. It's not what they told you. How about that? So as a special gift, I got you, Rick,
Oh, my gosh.
this one. Signed by Brian Godawa.
Oh, wow. Man.
Yeah, very cool.
So are we going to pass those around and
So what
take
I was
turns
thinking,
reading them?
whoever wants to start the series can read it first. I figured Andy would start it.
I'll be through all 4 of them any minute now.
It's like, dude, it's 2028. I'm going to start it, I swear. So this police officer was driving down this curvy highway.
Oh, it's a joke time, huh?
Yeah.
And
already?
he comes up on this truck, this old truck that's like weaving around on the road, just kind of going across the yellow line back and forth. So he flips his lights on and flips his siren on, and he gets up on the back end of this truck, and the driver of the truck rolls the window down. He's like waving, like, go by, you know? And he just stays right on him. And then finally the guy pulls over, and the cop unbuckles, and he opens the door, and he climbs out. And as he's getting out of the car, he notices that the driver is putting a bottle in the bed of his truck. So he walks up slowly, and he looks at the bed, and he sees it's a wine bottle, just an empty wine bottle sitting there. So he goes up, and he looks at the window, and he says, sir, do you know why I pulled you over? And he goes, I was trying to let you by, officer. I saw you. I was trying to wait. Did you see me waving you by? And he's like, no. Do you know why I pulled you over? And he says, no, sir, I don't. He says, well, he said, you're weaving all over the place. He said, have you been drinking today? And he goes, no, sir, all I've drank is water. Just drank water all day. So the police officer looks in the bed again, looks at him, and goes, sir, you sure you haven't been drinking alcohol? And he goes, I'm appalled. He said, I'm a Baptist minister. Are you sure you want to ask me that question? So he reaches back and grabs that bottle and he sniffs it and he goes, "Then why does this bottle smell like wine?" And the preacher says, "Praise the Lord, it's happened again."
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
Picking on the Baptist. I decided to leave the priest out of it this time. It could be a priest. It could be a Scientologist. Whichever.
We need some more Scientology jokes, frankly.
Yeah, Tom Cruise has had enough of his
A
popularity.
deep
Yeah.
well we need to get deep.
His
We need to get
$1
into.
billion, yeah.
Yeah, he seems to
We
be
could
doing
go
all
with John
right.
Travolta. We don't have to necessarily go with Tom Cruise.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but he can just fly away.
Or formerly, Kirstie Alley also was a Scientologist.
Formerly?
She's not any longer.
What about that? What was that lady's name?
Leah
that was
Remini?
Leah Remini. She
That
was
was a
on
good
King of
documentary.
Queens. I loved her in King of Queens.
Did you watch the documentary?
I haven't.
It's very good.
No, I haven't watched it.
The one that always gets me is Beck. Beck's the person that when you're like, Beck's a Scientologist, I'm like,
That makes
maybe
sense.
the's something to it.
That dude
Beck?
is getting crazy
Yeah.
with the cheese whiz.
He is getting crazy with the cheese whiz.
That's right.
Hey.
He's a wildly creative
Whiz.
individual, though.
He is very creative.
Whiz wit. Pats only. We don't go to Geno's.
I don't even know what that means.
That's a Chicago thing, right?
No, that's
No?
Oh, who is
Pats?
this person behind the glass?
that's a Philly cheesesteak
That's what I'm
Oh.
talking about.
with cheese whiz on the top. That's
Whiz,
Oh.
whiz wit.
he totally went a
Whiz
whole
means the
different
cheese
direction.
whiz, and the wit means onions.
Oh, I thought it meant with, like whiz wit.
Whiz wit.
That's what I thought,
That's
yeah.
Whiz
a
wit and onions.
Philly cheesesteak with cheese whiz, wit onions.
Wit.
Wit. I told
That's what I do behind
Everybody
the
go to
barn.
Pat's
Take
and
a
order a
whiz.
whiz
Whiz.
wit.
today's
Got anything wit?
What are we in the hood?
Fitting to get.
He
today's
is from
Oh my
Compton.
God!
fitting to get.
Fitting to
Fitting to
get.
get. Now you
Fitting to
sound
get.
like my youngest daughter.
I'm about to fit to get it.
I'm fitting to whip you. I'm like, yeah.
Fitting to get it.
We have totally gone off.
Today, today's release was Derek and Ryan Lambert.
Oh, yeah.
That
Nice.
you know that very small 2 hour and 40-minute podcast we did, and I had a conversation with him this week, and he's going to be doing something on Myth Vision, talking about us. He says it's one of his favorite podcasts, which is pretty cool. We love him. He made it out there. They're out there. They're happy. Their family's together. So everything's really good for Derek. So
Very good.
I'm excited about that one going up. It'll be interesting. There'll
Yeah.
be a reaction there.
Are you going to do the whole 2 hours and 30
we already
minutes?
released
dropped
it.
this morning.
It dropped this morning. Yeah. If you want
I
to,
know you talked about splitting it up, but I didn't.
we decided just to go ahead and let it go because I don't want 3 weeks of negative stuff coming to my phone. Let's just get it all over with. Just tear the Band-Aid off. Let's get back into this one, guys. So we are at the final part. We are at the Esther finale. Can you believe it? Finally, Billy cannot move on to another woman.
Yeah.
And then next week
Yeah.
he's going to
Yeah,
say,
we're
oh, by
just-
the way, the new translation is added 4 chapters.
Yeah. We're
Now
just
you-
now getting comfortable where we can fart around each other.
I think I showed up at the wrong one.
That's because Rick is sitting right next to Billy. Yeah.
Just a bunch of donkeys.
So
My first time I sat right there too, right?
I understand.
Yeah, careful.
Yeah.
It's a little sticky over
The
there.
eye candy's starting to rub off.
Yeah.
So, guys, where we were in the last one is whenever it's finally they've put out this edict to say, all right, you can defend yourself, And we heard what happened to Haman, how he was hung on the same gallows that he built for Mordecai, and King Ahasuerus went outside, smoked a camel or a pack of camels, I don't know how long, while he waited, and he comes in and he uses that word assault, which we learned in their language meant to rape. So he was full of anger and he saw Haman in that way, and he was done. And then I can't remember the name of the eunuch at the time. It's like Harabona or something. I'll make up names. Just
great.
believe it. Just believe it. But he comes in and he's like, look, and even right now, the man that saved the king's life, Mordecai, Haman's building a gallows for him. And so he says, get him out of here. And then it's from that point on, it says that the king's anger was abated. But then he lets Mordecai and Esther write this edict to be sent out. Remember, this is like the 3rd month, 23 days out of that 3rd month was already taken. So they had to send the king's horses out and put all this information out, so that the Jews could defend themselves. So on this purge day, they had the ability to fight back.
What's this? Ralph's great grandfather, maybe somewhere in there.
Hey, all the
Possibly.
king's horses and all the king's men, baby.
Baby. So we also want to remember what I really want you guys to focus on as we complete this is that Haman was an Agagite. And we've talked about this throughout this entire podcast, that this is a 1,008-year grudge match between the Amalekites and the Israelites. That's really what we're reading about right now. There's some fulfillment of prophecy. This is all taking place during the time of right after Daniel and the Babylonian exile, right after Ezekiel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. This is all when they're rebuilding the temple, they're rebuilding Jerusalem, rebuilding the wall. All of that's taking place over here in Persia, in Susa the Citadel is where this story is taking place, which is in modern day Iran. And so this is happening simultaneously to the Ezra and Nehemiah stories, or shortly after. So keep in mind,
What's the year?
2022.
No.
I'm just kidding. When did this take place? It was around
there's
4.
that other
It was
joke.
in the 5th century BC. It was like 489, I think it was, or maybe 429. I don't know. Maybe Mr. Carter could do a Google search for us and tell us when did the Book of Esther actually take place in time. So let's get to chapter 9. Sarita, if you don't mind, would you please read all 12 verses of chapter 9, please?
Now, in the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, on the 13th day of the same, when the king's command and edict were about to be carried out, on the very day when the enemies of the Jews hoped to gain mastery over them, the reverse occurred. The Jews gained mastery over those who hated them. The Jews gathered in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hands on those who sought their harm. And no one could stand against them, for fear of them had fallen on all peoples. All the officials of the provinces and the satraps and the governors and the royal agents also helped the Jews, for the fear of Mordecai had fallen on them. For Mordecai was great in the king's house, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces, for the man Mordecai grew more and more powerful. The Jews struck all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying them, and did as they pleased to those who hated them. In Susa, the citadel itself, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men, and also killed Parshandatha, and Dalphon, and Aspatha, and Poratha, and Adalia, and Aridatha, and Parmashta, and Arisai, and Aridai, and Vaisatha, the 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamadatha, the enemy of the Jews. But they laid no hand on the plunder. That very day, the number of those killed in Susa, the citadel, was reported to the king, and the king said to Queen Esther, "In Susa, the citadel, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men, and also the 10 sons of Haman. What then have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your wish? It shall be granted you, and what further is your request? It shall be fulfilled."
Thank you. So this has been the moment that they've all been waiting for. The day, the 13th of Adar is finally hit. We've been reading about the 13th of Adar so much. And remember, we called this series "A Lot Can Change a Lot." And that's because we started with the kickoff of the holiday of Purim, Pur meaning lot. And this one man, Haman, was so determined to kill this people, the people of the God of the universe, that he decides to take this lot and cast it to find out what day he's going to slaughter and eradicate that entire race with a tiny, like a 20-sided die from a Dungeons and Dragons game, okay? He's just, if it lands on 13, we're going to be on the 13th of Adar, bro.
It is wild that I missed that somehow.
Really? You
I
didn't know
missed
that?
Yeah, somewhere along the line, I missed that detail.
Yeah. I mean, which is quite amazing, to think that somebody would use this little thing, this little 20-sided die, and say, all right, wherever we cast, that's when we're going to kill him. And they did it. And he said, 1 year from now. So that lot changed a lot. It changed the entire planet. But not only that, like we talked about in the early episodes, guys, because we're going to finalize this. So let's just sort of recap as we go. Remember, this is the lineage of Christ. This is the people of Christ. This is where all of the Jews throughout all of the lands, and that includes Israel, by the way. This goes all the way through Israel, Jerusalem, everywhere. The actual ancestors of Christ could have been killed, and that could have ended the line. And I think that's something that I want to remember, because throughout time, there are all kinds of attacks on that line. That's what we learn whenever we see the genealogies. The genealogy is nothing more than the address to the Messiah.
Right, and there were prophecies that these were fulfilling. So if anything would have happened along the way, then it wouldn't happen. You know, Christ wouldn't have existed because you had all these prophecies that led up to it. So if it would have been, this line would have been killed off, well, then nobody would have believed because the prophecy wouldn't have been fulfilled.
Exactly.
And Esther was made queen in 478.
478. Excellent. So that would have been, yeah, okay. Excellent. Thank you. So I think, what was the Babylonian captivity was in 529. So this was 40 or 50 years.
Yeah, she was made queen in 478.
No, actually, they were in captivity for 70 years before they were released, and then Cyrus allowed them to go back. So 589 BC is when Jerusalem was sacked. So it was a little while. So anyway, regardless, so that one lot that they cast changed a lot for the Jewish people and for the entire world, and it even affects. Listen, think about it, guys. The turn of the dice affects us even today, if you're a believer in all of this.
I think it probably affects you even if you're not.
Thank you. You're probably right. Even if if you don't believe, it's still what's going on all around you in your nation with what other people believe too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally
this
get that.
is a religion that branched into Christianity and the Muslim religion. How do you say that? I feel like an idiot.
Islam. Yeah.
Islam, thank you. And what is if you take those three as one, is absolutely the most dominant religion? No, maybe not. There could be more like Buddhists, like India is so big and China is so big. But one of the two or three absolutely most dominant religions in the world, and it dictates your everyday life if you live in the U.S. or most of Europe and, you know what I mean, South America, parts of Africa. You can't overstate how important these things are. They were important in their day, and then you add the butterfly effect over time. It's absurd. There's no way to imagine what the world would be like if some small thing in this story was different, or as long as the story's true, which I don't know. I assume it's partially true at least. But the point's the same.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
And just a small little point. I think it was 586. You said 589?
Yeah, 586, maybe 589. Yeah, 586, you're right. I was having dinner with Colin Riley, and we were geeking out, Andy, on Quantum Leap, like talking about Quantum Leap,
I remember
the show and everything. They've brought it back on Netflix. There's a new version, I think.
Yeah, there is.
No, it's on NBC.
NBC, Peacock. Yeah.
On Monday nights.
Somebody's watching
it. Is it good? Because the original was really good.
The original.
And they do not try to overthrow Scott Bakula, because I was going to throw fists.
So is there going to be a podcast on TV in 100 years?
And the guy
people are going to be remembering dates of shows?
Yeah. So anyway, Colin and I were geeking out on the old Quantum Leap. And
good show.
I just remember when we were eating, he said, if I could go back in time, I would kill Abraham and stop all this bleepity bleep bleep. And I was like, what do you mean? He was like, it's all the three major religions, dude. It would stop them all. This is crazy.
True.
I was
probably.
Like, wow.
Yeah, maybe.
Man.
But God.
Yeah.
If they weren't Abraham, it would have been someone else.
Oh, yes, of course. Now, we believe this, but I'm just saying, he's a non-believer.
Oh,
God would have dropped him on his horse that day and blinded him.
Yeah, and Colin's food could have choked him. So, let's remember. Hey, do you have the notes, Cherry?
Yes.
Will you read Proverbs 16:33? So what we just said about how important the lot was, I want everyone to remember. We said this in the first couple of episodes. Let's recap that.
Is it in there?
Yeah.
I got 21.
Here, you want this piece of paper?
I like this bout of silence so much that I'll leave it in.
Yeah.
That? Yes. Sorry. I'm used to reading it out of the Bible itself. So when I seen it, I was expecting it to be like
Oh, you don't
bolded and all this.
consider Rick's
Good
work?
answer.
Rick's
Good
If
answer.
God had wanted me to read off a phone,
Right. He'd have gave me a bigger phone.
I'd have been born with one.
No, I'm
You need
just
to
kidding.
convert to Welchianism.
Which
Right.
stone tablet is it on?
The lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord.
There you go. So the lot is cast into the lap, and then, but that decision is Lord. So it's almost like you think it's chance, but in this case, the Lord is the one that's making the decision. So he chose the 13th of Adar. God chose the 13th of Adar, not Haman, not the lot. God did. And I think that's important. It's a God story.
God's the Jedi. You remember when he throws that thing? We let the fates decide, and then he, the dice goes to the.
it would have been a different story if the choice was 1 to 2 months away rather than a year.
Yeah.
A much different story.
It certainly would have been. They would have had really fast horses. And so if you don't mind, Cherry, would you read Proverbs 21, 1 through 3? Because there's we talked about this before in the previous episode. We talked about what happens to the king's heart, right? What happens to the king's heart. But if you read on, you learn even more.
The king's heart is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice.
Anybody else's toes feel a little bruised after that particular verse?
No.
Yes. Should.
Absolutely it does. Yeah. If we talk about the king, we've talked about Biden or Trump or whoever it might be in the world that we live in right now. If you are
Charles.
Huh?
King Charles the Third.
Yeah. Oh, is that who you?
It was a
The king.
post-Queen
You
world.
said king.
It was a
Third,
shout out.
Carter the
It
third.
was a shout out to Charlie.
Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity. Do you think King Charles has anything to do with anything?
No.
No, I
As
don't.
far as dispensationalism, a lot of people think this means something.
No, I
It
feel
means
bad.
nothing. I'm
I feel
sorry.
bad for him for having to come behind her.
I'm not
and-
even
and
sure
try
he
to-
means anything to the English government.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying because she was so beloved in her country
Guys,
and around the world.
I've been to England. I've been to London. I've walked around. I've talked to the people. Don't believe the TV. Those people don't give a crap.
No.
They don't care. It's America that cares. They don't.
Yeah, outside of England, it's romantic. The concept is romantic, but inside of England, they're just like
but the
they're
line
leeches.
to go was 5 miles.
Yes, when she died,
Tradition.
Yeah, but I'm just saying,
in
I would
most
not want
cases,
to be him.
they might say, "Oh yeah, okay, we respect the queen or whatever." But what has she done? Never mind.
Yeah.
I think
I know
he
she
said
did a
it
lot.
best. He said it's tradition.
Tradition.
Yeah. So the two extra verses. So the king's heart's in a stream of water, is a stream of water in the hand of the Lord, and he turns it wherever he will. So we know that we can know that in our own time if we believe that. Now, that doesn't mean that what we want the leader to do is what's happening. It says that it's what the Lord wills, right? It's hard for me to believe that Trump or Biden are doing things that the Lord wills based on some of the things that I believe. However, I have to trust that that's real if I'm going to continue to believe it,
I think it would be difficult to be a believer if I thought that God micromanaged things, because to look around and to believe in any sort of micromanaging, that would be daunting, I suspect.
And I think go ahead.
What's kind of interesting is from the point of casting a lot is you're giving up the authority to make the choice.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowing something else.
Yeah.
So
Gravity.
How in it, very much so, but allowing the Lord to take over that. We saw that and you spoke that.
Mm-hmm.
That the Lord made the choice by making the dice stop where it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But he let it go.
So, Rick, does that mean that you believe everything's predestined and doesn't matter what we think, and we're going to do what the Lord already thinks we're going to do?
We've sort of had this
Yeah,
conversation,
we've
but about a
We've
different
Calvinism
subject.
again?
No,
We've
no, no.
touched on this
No.
before.
Actually, I have.
It's just based on what he just said.
No. I
I'm sure
believe
there are
in-
people out there that have
I'm
questions.
not going to get into the deepness of it, but I believe in the volition of man. I think that, if I make you mad enough, you might come over here and smack me in the face, but there was a cause and effect. Why did I do it? I might deflect it, punch, Kimsey right in the candies.
That I want to see.
Pay-
I want to.
you pay money.
Yes, I'd
She'd
pay
pay
money to
Pocky
see
for that. Pocky hockey.
My candies?
No,
I'm kidding.
him hitting you and you retaliating.
okay.
Yeah.
But
Make them Skittles.
yeah, so wow.
This guy needs to come back.
He
I'm
does.
sorry.
Yeah.
Got
So,
good jokes.
so before, rather than get into the depth of am I a 4-point versus 5-point Calvinist and what do I believe, I know that there are scriptures all over, these verses all over scripture that talk about the total and complete sovereignty of God. And I think that man,
Sovereignty is different than predestination by being preordained. This is what he already knows what everybody's going to do. Do you believe that he already knows today what everyone's going to do for the rest of their life?
yes, I don't see how he couldn't. I don't see how a sovereign God that's outside of time couldn't know all things. That's what the definition of foreknowledge actually is. But it doesn't matter. That's not what this is about. For me, we can get into this. Welchianism says some things that are a little bit different than standard theology, right? I have a belief about Calvinism and that it could possibly stop in a specific time. It's weird. And I've talked to Sullivan and the other guys
I
it.
want to hear that. Maybe not today, but call me.
in
I
the
want to hear that.
In the same way that preterists, former, whether partial or full preterists, believe that time statements matter in the Bible and that you're reading other people's mail.
Right.
I think that you're reading other people's mail talking about a sovereign God that's doing something in a specific time that had no end. And at the end, it says the Spirit and the bride say, come in Revelation. That is ongoing fulfillment. I can say to myself that God doesn't have to do that anymore because the plan is complete. Why be so sovereign over all things today if all things are fulfilled? See what I mean? It doesn't matter because I'm sure somebody's going to argue, and I can't wait for the mail.
He's out inventing another world. He's left us behind.
Well,
that movie Left Behind is we truly are left behind.
as most Christians say today, that God is control of everything. Is he not?
Yeah.
Well,
But-
then we answer the question.
Control means he can control what we do. I just don't think that it's predestined that when we're born, our life is all laid out in front of us. I think that he gave us choice. And that choice means that at any point in time, I can turn left instead of right. Now, if he wants me to turn left, he can make me turn left. But I don't think he started in the beginning and said, at this point, he's going to turn left.
That is a very good debate.
I think that Haman had all kinds of plans. That was an excellent bring back into the
that was
story, by the way.
amazing.
Thank you.
We were all thinking it.
Sorry.
Haman, yeah, but I got to brag on myself.
I love this guy.
Haman had plans, right? Haman had plans.
Oh, definitely.
And Esther and Mordecai were aware of his plans, and there was an edict put out where they couldn't stop it. They couldn't control it. It was done. They were annihilated. And so Esther just decided to tell everybody not to eat, right? Not to eat. So there's a way in which a man should go, or a way that he will go, but it all leads to death. That's a proverb as well. There's a way in which, how does it go? There's a way
that seems right unto man, that seems right to man, but leads unto death.
Perfect. Yeah. And that's true for all men because we all die, right? But
And women.
women don't die.
That basically ties in with Ecclesiastes.
Yes. You're absolutely right. It does. So anyway, Haman had all these plans, and then it stops. And I believe that, as we said in the acrostics, I believe that God was the one. This is a God story. This is not a historical story. It's a religious story. So God is the one in control. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. I think that's true. I think that Haman was wicked and was the enemy. But I also think that Mordecai was wrong in the station that he was in at the time. Mordecai told himself as well as I don't know if it was himself. I don't know if they knew he was a Jew or not. Did they? I mean, how do you know
His name was Mordecai. I'm just kidding.
That's fair.
Traditional Jewish name.
Well, at the end of this episode, I'm going to tell you about Mardukah. He could have been called Mardukah, which was a god of the Persians, by the way.
Well, didn't it say in one point, and I'm pretty sure it did, that he went to put ashes on his head and sackcloth and went into mourning? That is a Jewish thing. That was not
He
necessarily.
didn't do it before. That's my point. You bring it right up.
Yeah.
Up until that point, Mordecai was in the wrong because he's telling Esther, hide who you are. He's telling himself, hide who I am. He's at the gate. He's watching for her, but don't tell him who you are. Because if they know who you are, what does that mean? Evidently, the people weren't necessarily liked, I would assume. But it's all assumption at this point. But Mordecai doesn't show that he's a Jew until he actually gets into sackcloth and ashes. And then this amazing thing happens after this fast, right? Where all of a sudden the dude that's in sackcloth and ashes is sitting on top of a king's horse wrapped in robes with a crown on his head, and his enemy is leading him through the street saying, this is the one whom King Ahasuerus wants to honor.
It's a little bit of a push making the assumption that had he exhibited as a Jew earlier, that the situation would have been similar. Does that make sense? Like, timing's everything.
I was going to say the same thing. It's timing.
Yeah.
There was a time that he wasn't meant to openly display who he was, and then there was a timing for him to finally display who he was.
I can't say that it was entirely unwise that he hid his culture before he revealed it, but you can't argue with the results of what did happen.
Right. You're right. When you said timing, you made me think, do you know what the difference between a good comic and a bad comic is?
Yeah, you and the guy and they pay.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
What did you say, Ralph?
But I got the laugh. I said the difference is between you and then the guys that get paid.
Oh, yeah. So every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the heart. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. I thought that was crazy. I was like, wait a minute. Think about that. To do righteousness and justice is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice.
You can sacrifice for the wrong reasons.
Well,
You can-
but in
you-
his,
wait
he's
a
talking
minute.
about sacrifice. He's not talking about sacrificing something.
How is that any different, though? If you think about when Jesus came and
Okay,
he was
what-
going to start his ministry, and he's telling them not to reveal who he is
Yeah,
because it was not his timing
right.
to reveal who he
Way
is.
to
So
go.
He was
Mordecai's
still
the
the
same
Jew.
way.
He was still a Jew, though.
Well, Mordecai knew he was a Jew.
He was still
I was
No, that's not what I point.
Christ.
Jew. No. Jesus is among Jews.
yes, but he was the Christ.
Yes,
and he
he's-
hid that.
But he
Yes.
wasn't hiding his Jewishness, is what
Yeah,
Rick is
but
saying.
What's that?
But I mean,
that doesn't-
who's to say that
Make
all
it-
the people that are out there, how many people were Jews and how many people were not? I mean, they said
We're
they put
speculating at
themselves
best, but
in there.
I would think quite a few if they were
Right.
able to fight back so well.
Right. So how many people were hiding who they were?
but not everybody hated them. It says only those
blended.
that they hated him.
They blended in. Obviously, he blended in, or he wouldn't have been able to stay out in front of the gate as long as he did, or even bring Esther to have her go through what she went through to become queen.
Oh, I
Yeah.
would say back then in those times, there were so many wars and this faction taking over that faction. There were plenty of people hiding who they were
Yeah.
because they'd all been conquered. There isn't one sect of humans back then that hadn't been conquered at least once. So someone's hiding everywhere.
That's
Yeah.
the comparison is between the two. They were both under occupation. Jesus was under Roman occupation, and now we're speaking of underneath Babylonian or Persian. Occupation.
Sure.
Did you
Actually,
catch
it's
that?
not. It's not occupation.
Well, I meant
they
they're-
didn't, because Israel was set free by Cyrus, which was King Ahasuerus' grandfather. And so that means that he sent them to be free.
Was he really, though? Think
What?
about it.
What?
Because here,
he who?
Haman was Mordecai. Was any of the Jews truly, really free? Think
Oh,
about it.
no. They still had to pay taxes.
Yeah, so you think about it.
Are
out
you
of the,
really
Out of
free?
the group of people,
I'm not.
I'm
so
not.
many decided to go back, and so many decided to stay because probably for the same reason that the Israelites got upset when they were brought out of Egypt, and then even though they were slaves in Egypt for as long as they were, they still looked at Moses like we were better off back there than we are here.
I get the same thing. I'm from California and Southern California, and I live in the South.
Self-preservation.
And folks don't want to. They don't care about people from California.
Yeah.
Yeah, they probably put a lot on you if you meet the wrong folks, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Like literally a mile from here. They'll really put it on you, son.
It's true.
You got to get down there in Edneyville, son.
In Haywood County,
Yeah. Put the
Transylvania.
hammer down on you, boy.
That's right, Yancey.
But they had done what normally the Lord talks about a lot in the Bible. They had so assimilated into the culture that they could not be discerned from the others.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's what God wants from his people. So, I mean,
I don't think they could fully assimilate, though. Like, I mean,
Well, they
maybe,
obviously intermarried.
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that people were able to act and dress like a Jew to keep from being killed because of the edict, right? So if that means that,
Oh yeah, that's right.
so that
Yeah.
means that they can assimilate, but they also look different enough to where people know that they're Jewish. And so that's why I always thought Mordecai had hid, and then once he realized what's happening to his people, that's when he starts to show his true Jewishness. He's doing something that no one else does. Nobody else puts on sackcloth and ashes in any other culture.
Another thing about those times, most people lived in groups of their own. You didn't have folks mixing with each other. So the Jews all lived in that side of town, and these people lived in that side of town, and all the communities were of whatever faith, religion, background you were. So if people lived, there's had to have been somebody that knew he was living over there. Mm-hmm. There were very few people back then. Even today, when immigrants come over, they usually come over in waves, and they usually, most of them, not all, most of them live in the same area.
Yeah, I think all three of you have actually changed my mind. I think that they had to have known that he was. They had to have. Huh?
We're sorry.
Yeah. Well, you proved me wrong. No, I think you're right. I think he. I guess maybe the reason why his mourning is not just because it's because of his people and what's going on. But it just seems.
Well, he might just been an invisible Jew. It's like, okay, he's Jewish and he's not hiding it, and there may be people that know it, but it may not be one of those things where he's touting it and where everybody knows. It's just, there are some people that know, but. The king probably didn't.
Well, as the
know
story
who
led up,
that was.
They all know that the edict's been out that they're going to be murdered and killed to a certain point. You're not going to hang out in the open.
That would make you hide a little. Certainly.
You think?
Yeah.
So
whatever your Jewishness was, you try to hide it.
Yeah. Yes. If not before, then certainly the minute you heard about that.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what it is that makes them look Jew. It's not tight pants. So, Rita, do you mind reading Esther chapter 9, verses 13 through 19?
Sarita will read it.
How about Rita?
No.
Rita.
She's not here.
The meter maid's not here today.
Sarita!
And Esther said, "If it please the king, let the Jews who are in Susa be allowed tomorrow to do according to this day's edict. And let the 10 sons of Haman be hanged on the gallows." So the king commanded this to be done. A decree was issued in Susa, and the 10 sons of Haman were hanged. The Jews who were in Susa gathered also on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and they killed 300 men in Susa. But they laid no hands. Am I reading the right thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. But they laid no hands on the plunder. Now the rest of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also gathered to defend their lives and got relief from their enemies and killed 75,000 of those who hated them, but they laid no hands on the plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar. And on the 14th day they rested and made that a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews who were in Susa gathered on the 13th day and on the 14th and rested on the 15th, making that a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore, the Jews of the villages who live in the rural towns hold the 14th day of the month of Adar as a day of gladness and feasting, as a holiday, and as a day on which they send gifts of food to one another.
Purim.
That's right. Purim, which is how we kick this off. So I love the fact that Esther asks for a second day. And I had really wondered, do you remember in the beginning of this, whenever I said it was weird that she asked for a second day to have Haman come for a feast? Remember how I said I thought that was kind of risky? I was thinking about that, and I was like, why? And I don't know why exactly, but in my personal opinion, and Sarita, you asked in the last part about fasting. Do you remember in your fasting ever getting a very clear mind? Did you come to a place where you just felt like if you read the scriptures, it's almost like it absorbed immediately? Have you ever felt that way?
I know you have.
Huh?
I know you have.
I'm just curious if you during the fast, one thing that happened to me in my fast was I suddenly got clarity on things that I never had seen before. And I almost felt like I could reach out and touch it. It was so clear to me. And I wondered why Esther had asked for that second day, because that was at the end of her fasting. And she asked for that second day. And I was like, why is she asking for a second day? Is she just trying to set up? I think that she is seeing something that God's showing her. I am really reading into this, guys. I'm going
No, but
deep.
I think that intuition and things like that. Like, let's take, for instance, you had a nice, comfortable job you'd been in for a long time, and you stepped out
Yeah.
and bought a piece of that business, and look what you've grown it into. But stepping out, that took overcoming fear, having a moment of clarity of I can do this, and then doing it. And that's very similar.
Yeah.
To put it in layman's terms for everybody out there to understand what it is that you're saying that she's come to, because this could have changed her whole life. I mean, she was made queen, but the previous one was told to go over on a whim, so she could be gone on a whim too. And as a Jew, she could have been killed because there was an edict. So she's stepping on eggshells here.
Exactly. It feels like like a razor thin line.
Absolutely.
And it felt like, why was she asking for the second day? What you got?
Could it be better that she asked him while he's inebriated?
Or in the mood to already say yes, like
Get
he
him
has.
happy, get him in a better mood, party him up.
I mean, that happened on the first day. Remember they drank. And
He was on a 2-day bender.
Yeah, it was a 2-day bender.
That's what happened to John the Baptist.
Well, wait a minute.
Best time to ask.
He's just
What you got,
He's
Jerry?
just,
All right, let's think about it for a
he's
second.
just Esther whooped. That's it.
I mean,
right there. That's all that
Everybody's
is.
in here either married or been married, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now let's be real. Has there not been a time in your relationship or past relationships ever that you're going to have to present something to your spouse? And you have to contemplate this. You have to think about it. How am I going to do this?
What's
How am
her
I gonna-
favorite meal?
So
Honey, you wanna go out
your
to dinner?
spouse well enough to know. You're like, okay, they like this, they like this, they like this. So you butter them up.
If I bring home some potted
So
plants,
if I know I'm going to wait, and if you know your
just gonna say
spouse
potted
well
Well,
enough
it's
to
like
know.
Sarita said
Like
about the
spam.
night after the night after that drinking.
Yeah,
not just
I'm
putting
just
them
saying, like
off.
you know, and if you know your spouse well enough, you're like, now's the time.
My wife knows with me to just say it because any buttering up, I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah.
That's why they just get better at buttering you up. You don't see it coming.
Yeah. That's right.
See,
Yeah.
she's so good at it. She doesn't have to say
Yeah,
anything. She
it's
just
true.
holds her hand out.
Yeah, it's just like you just work your way into the, okay, I need to have a conversation with you.
Speaking of conversations, I'm going to have a side conversation with Rodney about how you're manipulating him in your marriage.
Go ahead.
Bang.
You think he doesn't know?
Side study.
He doesn't. He doesn't have a clue, I promise.
Good luck. Good luck with that, Rick.
Looking at her, I think he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's got it made.
Yeah, he's looking at, he just called you hot.
I didn't take it that way.
That's kind of what he
I
meant.
thought he meant that I was just,
You should've.
overall a good person.
Looking at
should've.
Cherry. No, it's hard to look at
I
somebody
said-
and say that's a good person.
No,
You can
it's
say that's a
not.
really good hot person right there.
That's a really good-hearted person. See, that's how you say that, Rick.
Oh, bless your heart.
She's a good-
Good-hearted
go.
woman in
There you
love
go,
with a
yeah.
two-time announcer.
I was on
That
a,
is true with
I was
Rodney.
just on a training program, and they were talking about bless your heart, and a gal from Jersey says, "Well, that means this," with the finger. I was like, "No, it doesn't." She goes, "Yes, it does." I talked to somebody. I said, "You're from Jersey, of course that's what it means, but down in the South, it doesn't."
Yeah.
It only means that to the people up north.
Jersey.
Yeah.
We only reference that when we're talking
When
about
we're
people
talking
from the
about-
north.
Yeah. That's exactly
Bless your
right.
heart.
Yeah.
That means I can say whatever I want to next.
Right. So in this most recent one that you just, that we saw, everything was reversed. The Jews are winning. Everything is reversed. And you see the 3 days of fasting. Then you see the 2 days of feasting with Esther. And then you get 2 days of fighting in Susa the Citadel. And I like the fact that she had the fast, then the feasts, and then the fights. And she was ready.
She covered her F's.
She got.
And told Haman to go F himself.
Well,
So-
so I have a
In a
question.
really nice way.
Yeah.
And I've always
Bless his
had this
heart.
question, and I'm not sure I've ever gotten a good answer. Did they just hang the dead bodies?
They did.
So it was just hanging the dead bodies.
So they were killed the day before.
They weren't
You're
killed
Well, no, it
twice.
was the 10 sons.
Yeah.
If you'll notice about the 10 sons, that's something else we need to bring up. So they killed them on the 13th in the Susa of the
The
Citadel.
first day.
First day. The second day, they hung all 10 of them. And it's important to remember, which I put in the notes, there was already somebody on that gallows. It was their father. So we have 11 men hung on those gallows, which I thought was odd that he built such a giant gallows.
That's a big one.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, what did Haman have in mind? Was he going to stop with Mordecai, or did he have other things in mind? I think he had other things in mind. I think Mordecai was the first.
Yeah, with the timing being so close, of the building of the gallows being so close to the date of the purge, whatever it's called, probably. Yeah, he probably had other plans.
Yeah. So you're probably right. And it's big. So the sons that were killed on the 13th were hung on the 14th. And so they hung dead men to show everybody. But it's important to remember, anytime something's mentioned about these sons or about Haman, that when they killed them, they did not take the plunder. Now, in Mordecai's edict, he tells them to take the plunder, but they don't when it's in regard to Haman. And do you know why?
Because they weren't supposed to take it the first time, 1,008 years before.
That's exactly right. What was told to Moses in regard to Amalek?
Do not take anything.
That's exactly right. And
it's actually told to the Jews several times, but because some guys hide it under their tent, and that brings the whole destruction down.
There are
on top
some
of
times
them.
when he tells them to go ahead and take it, and there are some times when he tells you not. In regard to Amalek and of the Amalekites, and in regard to King Agag, the Agagite, who was the Amalekite king, in regard to Saul. And Jerry, if you don't mind, I want you to read 1 Samuel 15, 1-3. We're going to go back. We talked about this a little bit. We did this in the Halloween episode, and we're also doing it right now in the Esther series. We've already done it in the Esther series. I want to remind you of this 1,008-year grudge match between these two, and what's really important, and how the Jews knew. This is what helps you to understand how the Jews knew who these Gogites were, or the Agagites were.
And Samuel said to Saul, "The Lord sent me to anoint you king over his people Israel. Now therefore listen to the words of the Lord. Thus says the Lord of hosts, I have noted what Amalek did to Israel in opposing them on the way when they came up out of Egypt. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey."
Right. So as you see, he tells him, wipe them out. Even their donkeys. Wipe out their burros. Right?
Bad news for us.
Bad news.
Oh.
Oh, but we still bray.
I'll put the noise in. The sound. Yep, that one.
Don't do mine. But now in 1 Samuel 15, if you would, Cherry, read verse 7-9 and listen to what happened, though.
And Saul defeated the Amalekites from Havilah as far as Shur, which is east of Egypt. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and devoted to destruction all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep and of the oxen and of the fattened calves and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. All that was despised and worthless they devoted to destruction.
So what did they do?
They kept all the good stuff.
They didn't listen.
They kept the good stuff, and Saul did not kill the king, and his name was Agag. And because of that, even though Agag died, his family survived. By saying that the father survived means that his posterity survives. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
When because
his progeny.
Yes, in their
His line did not end.
Yes, that's correct. If the king is left alive, that means that his children are also alive. So he thinks himself, King Agag, that day, he's like, oh, things are okay. I'm good, remember? And Saul hacked him up. But still, the sons escaped. And that's why years and years and years later, here we are. This Hamadatha is a descendant, and Haman his son, or Haman his son, and then all of his 10 sons. That's still from King Saul's decision not to do what God said. And Samuel, even though we did, Ralph, you really didn't care for Samuel, Samuel warned him, what have you done? You have not done what God said. And so Samuel tried to stop and do what God said, but it was too late. They'd already created this problem.
It's the Old Testament God.
Yeah.
And so we can assume when the 10 were hung, the children, grandchildren, wives. There was none left behind.
They're done.
They're all gone.
They're gone.
Yep.
That's the end of them.
I think
Yes.
in a world as kind of awful and violent as the world was that long ago, if you want some sort of peace, I think that's how far you might have to go to get it in a lot of situations.
Yeah, you're right. And it, as evil as it sounds, as harsh as it sounds, it's the only way you can get it to stop. There's
Yeah,
some
look what
people-
happened when he didn't.
Right.
1,008 years later, we're still dealing with this problem, or they're still dealing with this problem.
Right.
I wasn't alive.
No. But
Yeah, but I think if you would have been back there, you'd have said that to somebody.
yeah.
Look what you created. You know, I think she gets back when she gets to heaven. She's going to be thinking, dude,
Look
come
what
on
you
now.
did. Look what you did.
Look
What you did down here. Well, I think that if you think about Purim now, if you think about what an excitement this is, not only are they saving themselves, but they've ended this 1,008-year war between two tribes. It's finally done, and it happened through this young woman, this beautiful young woman that God elevated. She was a sex worker, and he elevated her to a queen. Isn't that amazing? Sarita, do you mind to read Esther 9? And this is, I want you to read 20.
You think that's how they got the premise for the movie Pretty Woman?
Well, I was thinking about Reba.
Why?
Oh,
Fancy,
and
don't
her
let me
fancy,
down.
Don't let me down.
Here's one chance, Fancy, don't let me down.
That's okay. When he said
Here's
winning earlier, you know, they're winning, and I'm thinking Charlie Sheen, winning.
Sorry, quick derailment. We foster dogs, and right now we have this little Chinese crested, which if you don't know is like this incredibly ugly dog without fur, and it has a terrible skin condition, and we're fostering it until the skin gets better and then it'll get adopted. And my wife decided that its name was Fancy after the Reba song.
So I'm curious because what I might do is convince my wife to let me take that dog and name her Fancy Esther.
Fester.
I like them. Fester.
Fester.
Uncle Fester.
Even better.
Oh, man.
Even more fitting.
I have a great
How
picture
about
of
Fancy Hadassah?
Hey, because that was her.
That's her Hebrew name.
Hebrew name. That's right. And Cherry, I have a great picture of you and Rodney as Uncle Fester and Granny, right?
Yeah, Grandmama.
Grandmama from Adam's Family. It was fantastic.
Nice.
All right, so let's read chapter 9, verse 20 through 32, which will finish up chapter 9.
And Mordecai recorded these things and sent letters to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, obliging them to keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and also the 15th day of the same, year by year, as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned for them from sorrow into gladness and from mourning into holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days for sending gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted what they had started to do and what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them and had cast pur, that is, cast lots, to crush and destroy them. But when it came before the king, he gave orders in writing that his evil plan that he had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore, they called these days Purim, after the term pur. Therefore, because of all that was written in this letter, and of what they had faced in this matter, and of what had happened to them, the Jews firmly obligated themselves and their offspring and all who joined them, that without fail they would keep these 2 days according to what was written, and at the time appointed every year, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, in every clan, province, and city, and that these days of Purim shall never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, and Mordecai the Jew, gave full written authority confirming this second letter about Purim. Letters were sent to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Ahasuerus, in the words of peace and truth, that these days of Purim should be observed at their appointed seasons, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther obligated them, and as they had obligated themselves and their offspring, with regard to their fasts and their lamenting. The command of Esther confirmed these practices of Purim, and it was recorded in writing.
Yeah, so after all of this stuff, And now they have this Purim. They actually make it a memorial. It's not just a holiday, it's a memorial. They want to remember this, and they call it by the name of which caused it, that the lot, the casted lot against them, and they would remember it. And they made that something that was to be reminded and done by every generation from them. Remind me, Ralph, when did this take place?
I mean, Esther was elevated in 487.
487 BC.
Mm-hmm.
So 487 BC, Esther was elevated, and we are at year 2022 now. So we are at exactly, what, 2,199 years later? Am I wrong? No, more than that. Say 500 plus 2,200 is 2,700. So it was 2,600 years. By the way, they still celebrate this to this day, every single year. They still do it, no matter where they are, anywhere. They've been scattered throughout the world, and they still celebrate and remember what God did for them. They're such a unique culture. They really are. So let's, if you don't mind, Rita, let's finish this out. We're going to go on to Esther chapter 10. There's only 3 verses, and that completes the reading of the scripture of Esther.
King Ahasuerus imposed tax on the land and on the coastlands of the sea, and all the acts of his power and might, and the full account of the high honor of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Ahasuerus, and he was great among the Jews and popular with the multitude of his brothers, for he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to all his people.
So it's important to remember that in a lot of these stories, when God is working for his people, even though he's behind the scenes and his name is only hidden, Hashem, the name, the tetragrammaton, those 4 letters, YHVH, are just dancing around in these little acrostics forward and backwards, and the author's just trying to let you know God's still there. But we had those other scriptures that told us that God was still there. And so what he's done, like he did with Joseph, we all remember the story of Joseph and how his brothers sold him into slavery, and how God raised him up, put him in the house of Potiphar's wife, put him in prison, then brought him before the Pharaoh of Egypt, and he became the second most powerful man in all of Egypt, and he saved his entire family from famine. And even though his brothers meant it for evil, God had meant it for good. And that's who Joseph was. And Joseph was a type of Christ, just like Mordecai is a type of Christ, just like Daniel is a type of Christ. The Old Testament are slammed full of types of what's coming, and Christ was the perfect antitype to every single one of them. That's what makes this so amazing. Even if you don't believe in God, believe in the literature of the people who believe in him, because they never let it go. For thousands of years, they have believed this thing. That's what they've done. They've held on to this. They believed it. They believed it with all their heart, and they kept these writings for thousands of years, guys.
The Chinese have been believing in things for 5,000 years.
It's true.
Yep.
By the way,
It's true. I'm not negating that the Chinese are amazing people by any stretch.
I looked up on Chabad.org, and the very first Purim was Adar 15, 3405, which is 356 BCE. And what they call Esther, or the Megillah, was recorded in 355 BCE. Megillah.
Wow. So that's how much time had passed when they started Purim. Wow.
Well, started Purim or recording it. So she said recording, not doing.
Right.
Right.
It's hard to say the difference. You can't tell. But
According to, this is a Jewish historical site, so I don't know. I mean,
but recorded
says
as far as written
Haman's
down or oral
downfall
recording.
and execution by hanging was 357 BCE.
okay, well,
No.
that's pretty clear.
When
No.
I looked up at Britannica, it said 350 to 300 BC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's in there,
All right.
close enough.
Yeah.
Well, no, I was 100 and some years off based on what the Bible charts and Matt says as far as the timeline of the Bible.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter,
It was a
but-
long time ago. And
What's
they're
100
still
years
doing
between
it.
friends?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, truthfully, what's a couple hundred years between friends? Well, there's something that I discovered and I wanted to share it. This is, it's kind of interesting. So in Iran, they had an archaeological dig in the 1930s. Now, they don't allow these digs to take place today, okay? But they did back in the 1930s.
Was that Persepolis? Persepolis?
Yes, Persepolis. So, good job, actually, knowing Persepolis. That's awesome. Although we live by faith and not by sight, and this, what I'm about to read, is very interesting. And even scholars will debate this, right? So keep that in mind, and you can Google this when you're done if you'd like to read, because I went down this rabbit hole myself, and it was, as with anything in the internet or with YouTube, you can go down that rabbit hole for an entire month if you so choose. But listen to what was written. While Shushan was the winter palace of the Persian kings, that might sort of ring the bell of Susa, the citadel, the main capital was at Persepolis. Today, the spectacular ruins of the palace may be visited near the city of Shiraz in Iran. In the 1930s, archaeologists working on the site excavated thousands of official records in the form of small clay tablets. These tablets are known as the Persepolis Administrative Archives, or simply the Persepolis texts, and today they may be seen at the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago. Of particular interest to Bible students is that the records make reference to an official named Marduka, or Marduku, who served both Darius the Great and Xerxes the First, known in the Bible as Ahasuerus. What I wanted to say is something that Andy and Sarita, you had brought up a couple of times about Mordecai possibly being a power broker. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. Or at least having some position that wasn't nothing.
He sat at the king's gate.
This discovery could possibly mean that as Mordecai was in the citadel, that he had actually worked for Xerxes I, for Ahasuerus' father. All the kings, by the way, were called Ahasuerus. Okay, just so you understand, from their point of view. But this guy, Marduka or Marduku, had served Darius and Xerxes, so it's very possible that he could have been a power broker of some form.
It was her theory for the record. I just thought it made sense.
Yes.
So let me ask this question. Since Mordecai served Darius the Great and Xerxes the First, or Ahasuerus, very much in the same vein that Daniel served Darius and Cyrus?
Yeah, which was
he was a eunuch. That you think, is this a reason Mordecai they don't mention any children of Mordecai, so he took in Esther as a child? Was he a eunuch?
It doesn't say, but it's quite possible.
I just kind of, Count Dooku over here, Marduku.
I just don't, how many eunuchs are Hebrew? Do you ever hear of Hebrews becoming eunuchs?
Daniel. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were all eunuched.
By the Babylonians.
Correct.
So maybe that's quite possible.
When they were taken captive.
That while he was in captivity,
all the strong men that they had serving in the castle that were Jewish.
Population control.
So when the Medes and the Persians took the Jews, they obviously Cyrus allowed them to go, but then they took the Jews from there and they could have went. So it's quite possible that he was among a group that was pulled to Susa. And maybe because the father of Esther was dead and she had no parents, then he took her with him.
And she became part of his lineage because it says her dad and Mordecai.
Right. Yeah. That's in the custom of the Hebrew.
It's neither here nor there. I just wondered, since
That's
it was in the same vein.
Yeah, it's all super interesting.
Of Daniel, like Daniel being...
We're speculating, but that's a great speculation, though. I mean, it's quite possible. So Marduka and Marduku are likely variations of the same name, Mordecai. These records confirm that there was an official or officials with the name of Mordecai during the reign of Ahasuerus. Further, one of the records even places Marduka in Shushan, where the events of the book of Esther take place. It is impossible to be certain whether this official was the cousin and adoptive father of Esther, heroine of the Jewish people. However, Robert Gordis, a rabbinical scholar writing in the book Religion, Wisdom, and History in the Book of Esther, published in 1981, states that there were two officials with the same name at the same time in the same place is scarcely likely.
And it might be also the reason, him being a eunuch, might be also the reason he traditionally would have married her.
Oh, yeah.
He would have married her because she was orphaned.
Mm-hmm.
And cousins, you marry, and that was very common, the next of kin. And maybe that's why they didn't marry.
Right.
And so she became available for the king.
Yeah, I mean, Abraham and Sarah were cousin,
Yeah.
and that happened to them. As a matter of fact, when Abraham tries to lie to the Pharaoh when he's going down to Egypt, he says that this
It's
is
only a
my cousin.
half-truth.
It's half true. It was his cousin, but it was also his wife. But he was given his wife to sleep with the Egyptian Pharaoh to save their lives, is what he was doing. I'm talking about Abraham and Sarah, of course. But that was, kind of in line with what you're saying about cousins. And we have that here in North Carolina. We have first and second cousins that marry all the time.
Right across the
I don't
border,
know
they
any.
do brothers and sisters. So,
You mean into Virginia, West Virginia.
He might be my uncle,
South Car-
but he's
Which
still
border
my
are you
daddy.
talking about?
South Carolinians are thankful for West Virginia because we got somebody to pick on.
Yes.
hey, so I do have a question going back to when Esther was, because King Xerxes is from 485 to 465, which puts Esther at 487, but somebody said 300. So I'm just wondering where that
Just
300 came
Britannica
from.
said the timeline would be 350 to 300.
I was just going by.
Are you guys using AD, BC, E, CE? What are y'all
BCE.
using? You guys are using the Common Era.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're off by 100 years. So is that saying AD versus BC?
This says this is BC. So BC,
It's all BC.
It's all
485 to
BC.
465 BC, and
That's what I'm
she was
saying.
at
BC versus
487.
BCE. So you have two different ways of looking at time. You got the BC and the AD, and then you got BC and or CE and BCE. Common Era before the Common Era. Just so you know, I don't know why, but Cherry's making fun of me because of why.
You
But
know
that would make
stuff,
sense.
right?
It's
I'm not
exactly
that
100
educated
days,
there with that whole
100
ABCDEF
years.
thing.
Sounds
So
like
it's
BS.
probably right. It's BCE, not BC. So yeah,
I could be completely
they're
wrong.
both right. But
Hey,
the,
I just know it was a
the
long time
Jewish
ago.
thing is going by the BCE, not the.
Yeah,
so that
I'm just,
we're
might
talking
be.
about the
You're
same
talking-
Might be.
years. Yeah.
yeah, just like
This is why they were persecuted.
We're all
Christians
just a bunch
against
of
the
BS.
Jews again.
I'm on Billy's version.
We're all right and wrong.
BCAD, BS, who knows?
yeah, GD.
F you.
So,
HS.
oh my goodness. Well, so guys, we're not going to record another podcast tonight. We're kind of into the next hour, and I just thought maybe we can end this properly since we've had to skip around with Esther so much. And I'd like to just ask you guys individually, and obviously, Rick, I'll let you go first because you've been listening more recently than any of us because our guys don't
That's
even
so
listen
true.
to our own podcast. But what did you think of this study in particular?
It was great. It really was. This format.
Why?
This type of format is something that really needs to be more showcased out in the open, where just people can get around and talk about things and bring up things from a different perspective. I mean, I've learned so much from a woman's perspective that you don't normally hear, that they bring a part
Because
into.
we're not allowed to talk, y'all.
There's a reason for that.
Shut your mouth. Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
God,
Kiss my grits. I love that show.
But there's just so much to this format that we need that we're not always competing to be right.
Did it cause you to want to look up something that somebody said?
No.
Dang.
I mean,
Well, that's a failure.
Has it caused you to study
see, that
or
question-
get
that
into the word even more?
But that answer for me
anymore?
is no, because I've read it. I've read the stories. I've read what's going on. So as I'm listening to you guys talk about stuff, I'm comparing to what I've read. Okay. So, and that's what I should compare because everything is speculation. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm trying to use what is already speculation from somebody else and not scripture, then I'm doing it wrong. So I'm comparing what's said.
Yeah, we talk about interpretation of the scriptures in here a lot.
Yes.
Things are always open to interpretation from every single human being. We're going to get into hermeneutics that actually teach you that's incorrect.
Yes.
There are people that show you how to correctly interpret Scripture. And then I've heard that men argue about the hermeneutics.
Oh, man.
You do understand that, right? They argue about the actual approach to interpretation too. So there's a plenty of people. I said it like an Italian. There's a plenty of people that are out there just writing there's somebody wrong on the internet all day. There's always going to be that. For us, it's always opinion and speculation in here because none of us are scholars, but we're just reading it. And so my hope is like what Ralph said. Is anybody picking it up and reading themselves? If not, we're reading it to you if you're listening, and we're trying to speculate. And if you don't know the answer, then just be patient. Just be patient.
That's the second time you said that, and I'm going to correct you on that.
What did I say?
I think it was the last testimony. It might have been, you said we're not scholars. Actually, one of the definitions of scholars is anyone who attempts to learn anything. So yes, technically we are scholars.
Yay.
Yes, that's
Look
the
at
third
us.
definition.
Yeah,
We're women and scholars.
Holy mackerel,
Holding
Andy.
down the fort over here.
I'm
Jerry.
telling you, girl.
Does
So,
the third
this just
definition
got
really
deep.
matter, though?
It does.
Wait,
Let's be real. Let's be
The
real.
interpretation of that is incorrect.
Yes. Thank you, Scholar Billy.
Sorry, scholar.
Candy
So-
over
He's
there.
still-
Shut your mouth.
He's still on that scholastic book.
I gotta
Yes.
tell
Pop
you,
up.
Billy is really hot under the scholar. Enter the donkey laugh
Ba-dum-bum.
now.
Donkey die.
Ralph, what did you think of this whole study here?
It made me look at it from several different ways, from several different point of views, from several different people's point of views. And what I mean by that is I'm now thinking about if I live long enough, I want to film a series of movies, shorts, 30, 40 minutes, Jesus through the life of Judas, Jesus through the life of Mary, Jesus through the life of so-and-so. And that's how I approach this. Okay, what was this like through the eyes of Mordecai? What was this like through the eyes of Esther, through the king Xerxes, from different people's point of view to try to see. One of the things that we talk about is interpretation. And a lot of that interpretation comes from the language in the day and then the culture of the day. But there were many cultures there. There was the culture of the king and the culture of the Jews and the culture of everyone else that lived there that had been conquered. So I was trying to come at this from their culture and look at this a lot of different ways. And so I found it interesting because it made me look at this, 4 or 5 different ways to try to come up with what I felt was what may have happened back then and what was going through their minds.
So you like to take apart the story and look at it from all kinds of different points
Oh,
of
absolutely.
view, doing the who, what, where, when, why. And,
Absolutely.
And you'd like to do more of that, but through film.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Andy. So you've never heard the story of Esther before, so this is all new. What'd you think about it?
I'm trying to think if I ever actually heard this story before. I might have, but like very brushed, you know what I mean? Not in any detail at all. It would have been like super Cliff Notes version. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember it. What do I think?
He was at the
about
Rocky Horror Picture Show and somebody said the word, "Oh, this looks like Purim." And
it? Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, he did make a reference to that, which went right over my head because I forgot. But yeah,
Oh, the bread?
yeah,
yeah,
the bread. Yeah, like anyway.
What do I think about it? I don't know. I think it's an interesting story. I'm genuinely more fascinated with Sarita's theories about this story than the story itself. I'm not going to lie. Like,
Yeah.
it's a good story, but it doesn't like get me to a place in my life, right? It doesn't define me. It's just kind of an okay. If you just pull this out of the Bible and you make it as written without rewriting it a story, then it's just an okay story,
Sure.
right? I'm sure somebody could rewrite it in a way that was absolutely riveting.
A Night with the King?
Yeah.
There's a movie.
Is that what it is?
It's A Night with the
A
King.
Night with the King? How is it?
It's actually really good.
Is it really good?
Yeah.
You could rewrite it in a way that was riveting, but as it's written in the Bible, yeah, it's like fine.
yeah, but for somebody who has girls,
The part
this is a great heroine story to say,
That's-
"Hey, you
oh,
can
that's
do this.
true,
Look what
too.
you can do."
that's true too. Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't just, I have on my wall, a painting that says, you were created for such a time as this. And I believe that for every person. And we just got to figure out what we're supposed to do in this time that we're created. We're here for a reason. We have a purpose. So what is that? Her purpose was this. What is your purpose?
Study and get ready so that when the opportunity comes that you're prepared.
Correct.
Do you feel like you have a purpose being here?
In this room? Of
Do
course.
you think you're supposed to be here?
Is that the big here or the small here?
Here.
I'm
in the
just-
studio.
I'm
Okay.
just here to antagonize
The small
you.
here.
Have you ever thought it in that regard?
Sometimes. I mean, I didn't intend to become part of the cast. I was just sharing my testimony. And when you talked about Esther, I really love teaching Esther. It's one of my favorite things to teach
Yeah.
youth girls, especially. But that and Ruth. I mean, I really, really like women are not forgotten by God. And I want females to hear that. We need to hear that we are not forgotten by God.
And men, you need to teach your daughters things. Take them fishing. Teach them how to build. My daughter, when she's 2 years old, I had her working with a bolt and a nut. You got to you have to empower them, or someone else will have power over them.
It's
That is
probably
correct.
true that I'm not looking at the story for the implications of its place in the Bible and the fact that it has a female heroine that is absolutely one of the two pivotal characters. One of the two
Well,
main-
that's probably too because we've lived with this for a long time.
you know what I mean? I'm not seeing it that way. I'm just like, it's a story. Yeah, it seems cool, but I'm not understanding its import from that angle. I'm sure.
Yeah. And so what did you take away from this study?
That no matter how many times I teach it, there's still something to glean from it for myself. You know, sometimes I do think because I'm a mom and I'm so busy and I forget that I have a purpose. Right now, my purpose is parenting my kids. That's sort of like my main purpose in life at this moment. They won't always be in my house. So my main purpose, my mission field, if you will, are my children. So, but I do have a purpose outside of that, and trying to figure out what that is as an older person, that, you know, we all have this purpose. And do I think I'm supposed to be here? Yes. I think that this was orchestrated by God, maybe for me to learn something from y'all. Maybe it's for me to say something that impacted Andy because he kind of liked my questions on it or my viewpoints or whatever. But like I've grown, even though I've taught this 4, 5, 6 times. Mm-hmm. I learned.
The Bible has a way of doing that, doesn't it?
It's a living document.
Yeah.
It speaks. I mean, you can read the same verse in different times in your life, and it means something completely different than it did the first time.
I was definitely brought here. There's no doubt because I was.
You have to bump in here. You just jump in.
I don't want to overtalk. But
No, go ahead.
I get I mean, this is so surreal to me. And that you guys don't get to see the moment like I can share with you guys. For the fans that really spend the time to get to know you by your voice and by what you say. I mean, each and every person here at this moment has a part that they're playing to somebody out there that's listening to you, what you say about your moment and your question, even with Andy. I mean, he plays a part in all this. It's crucial that I
love
told
how
him.
it's like even with Andy. It's kind of like in the story.
I'm included.
It's like Esther.
Yeah,
when
the
it's
guy
like,
behind the glass.
And the
Yes.
Jews.
Yes.
And the Jewish language.
That was really funny.
And
I love
Andy.
that. Yeah, and the Jews, and in the Jewish
Even
language.
Andy counts.
But
I love it.
No,
Wow.
I'm just playing.
sorry, Rick.
No.
No, but yes, I get to play a part in this to show you that you do mean something to somebody that you just don't know. And I know life is busy, and I know what our own things are important, but this moment and what you're sharing and talking is touching somebody somewhere. I mean, you talked about how many people listen, and that's quite a few people.
We're rapidly approaching 30,000. We're into 28,000. So people, tell people about us, please. So I want to get a whole lot more negative stuff.
Click
Yeah,
like
link-
and share.
Yeah, click like and share.
Send it to your Facebook.
Rate and review.
Rate
yeah.
and review.
Yeah.
Give me 5 stars, please.
And for negative,
Don't
Ralph,
give me
you're
any
about-
ideas. I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut the last one out too, where Ralph suggested it. I'm going to cut it. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
I'll cut it out.
Ralph,
Don't give people ideas.
you were
All
about to
right.
say something.
I definitely know that you were brought to me. I worked at a church in one capacity or another since I was 7 years old. And then I was on staff at a church for the 10 years before I met you. And then I was not. I left for my own reasons. And I felt good about it. I'd served for 50 years. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break. And everybody said, what are you going to do next? I said, oh no, the Lord's going to bring it to me. And I didn't realize at the time, because there was a 2-year gap a couple year gap before this started, but he brought me to you, and you and I we did some Christian films together and some different things and built a relationship. And then you said, let's do the podcast. So, I mean, I went straight from serving in the church to serving God again, just a different way.
Right. 28,000 is a lot of people.
It is. I mean, it's not a Joe Rogan, millions and millions and millions.
No.
Yeah, but he didn't start off in a million either.
Russell Brand almost has 6 million followers now.
There was a day all of them said,
Rumble?
"Hey, I'm almost at 28,000."
He just started Rumble,
Yesterday.
because YouTube took down some of his episodes,
Censored
which is
him.
all garbage. It's garbage is what it is. Russell Brand is the most liberal man you'll ever meet. He's incredibly liberal, and he's following all of the guidelines. And YouTube are becoming a Gestapo on language.
I don't know him well enough to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I don't.
Anyway, so he's going
I actually
to
listened to the first one today on the Rumble.
Did you?
Yeah, and I enjoyed it. I was like, dang.
He went to Rumble because they censored him. He would have never went to Rumble.
No.
Never.
And he interviewed Glenn Greenwald today.
Really?
Yes, it was bizarre. I was like, these two people are in the same pod. What's happening?
So the guy that I went to high school with, Duncan Trussell, who's on Joe Rogan's podcast all the time. He's also with Russell Brand. These, Russell Brand and Duncan are super liberal guys. Rogan's really not. He is kind of, but people don't realize it. He has these liberal undertones, but he's mainly a conservative hunter.
He used to be serious liberal.
He's slowly changed over the years. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's
nothing
actually
that
happened
fighting
faster.
and guns won't do for you. I promise.
The last year, a couple of years since COVID, he's really changed
He
a
has.
lot.
He has. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think a lot of people have changed since COVID.
COVID broke people.
Yeah.
It broke people.
I gained 60 pounds during COVID.
Me too.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. You didn't gain 60 pounds.
Where?
You don't even weigh 60 pounds.
I don't believe it.
Shut your mouth.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart.
God love her.
Cherry, what'd you think of this study?
Well, the first time I ever read Esther, it really didn't really impress me. I mean, I was just like, oh, a little bitty short, chapter or book in the Bible, and moved on. I mean, I liked reading Joshua more, and everything. It just wasn't enough.
Not enough action.
Yeah, there wasn't enough action in this book when I first read it. So, which was when I first started reading the Bible,
Sure,
8 years ago. So, coming around, before, as things have evolved in my life, I was going to Bible college there for a little while, and I was going on Tuesday nights, and I really enjoyed that because I got to study. This is the only thing I'm nerdy about. I'm not a nerd in any other area of my life, but there's not enough books to read or
she's lying. She's a straight up charge nurse at a gastro,
That doesn't make me a nerd.
It does make you a nerd.
That
That makes you a nerd.
intestines, and you can talk all the talk. And she's like,
job.
I think you need to do the brat diet because you're going to have diverticulitis.
Any smartness makes you a nerd. Just so you know.
Wow.
Which is the candy I expect for Billy to use someday.
It's just a nerd. I do like the gummy nerds, though. Those are good.
Yeah, the little
go ahead.
ropes. Those are pretty good.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
So anyway, my life changed a lot. I had to stop going to Bible college, of course, because I started raising two of my grandkids, and so now my life is full force, constant, on the go. I'm literally point A, point B, just constantly touchdown, go here, go there, and so coming back around to this story now, because I'm so busy, being able to stop and actually read it again, and through coming here, have taken it, learning how to read the Bible. A lot of times we just read the Bible. How many people really read, who wrote the book that you're reading in the Bible, and what time frame was that in, and what kind of culture were these people and things. So when you start reading the Bible and you start learning and thinking about those things, it opens it up more to you. Number one, to study more about that culture and that time frame, but it also helps you take that information and process it into your own life. Kind of like mirror imaging.
Yeah.
How it would be for you now,
Sure.
and how it was for them. And so going back through this book, where I guess maybe I just pretty much just ran through it, and I was like, oh, there's more interesting books in the Bible. Now going through it this way, obviously this one is quite interesting. Actually, there's a lot. There's a lot more. I guess your main character being Esther, but there's so many other characters that were important in all of it. It's not just Esther. There's, even the eunuchs. I think about the eunuchs, going back and forth to the gate, Mordecai asking and Esther sending messages back, and then her saying, well, could Mordecai possibly have been a eunuch? Well, I always wondered to myself, why did the eunuchs do this with these two, when they're supposed to be servants of the king?
Mm-hmm.
So, just little things like that. Made me think
He could have been a eunuch.
He could have been. He could have been.
I think that's a great question. I think he could have been a eunuch, but it's just like, I think there's just like everybody anywhere near that power is jockeying for a part of it. I think that's,
Possibly.
There could have been a lot of eunuchs during that period of time.
Yeah.
They knew what Egypt was. They knew what the Hebrews were coming out of Egypt and the number that they had created, and they had come out. So when you conquer somebody, you don't want them to grow.
Right.
Because then how can you control
You
them?
can't control them. Yep.
Because the Jews outnumbered Israel or Egypt. They outnumbered them a lot.
For me,
really?
it was like taking a
Not
black and
initially,
white.
but during their enslavement,
Yes.
they
No.
grew
Yes.
massively.
Massive.
no kidding.
Well, they kept growing their slave workers to do their bidding, and then it got so big.
And that's why
They became the
and that's why the
minority.
Pharaoh wanted to work them harder and about basically work them to death.
Yep.
So it was like taking a black and white coloring book and adding color to it.
I'm glad.
That's
So
cool.
you enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Billy? What did you think about this study?
Yes, Queen.
Yeah.
No, it was cool. It was really cool. It was another. It was like that story. Well, it's any other story in the Bible. It's like just the little things that causes something major. Like leaving the gate open for the donkey to get out. That one
Right.
story that we had. So it's like it just goes to show you that it's more about living and not planning, because just the little things like the king not being able to sleep, or Haman having a problem with Mordecai, just the little things. And I just, we're not in control. And it was a good story. I really liked it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that insight a lot.
I was gonna say,
me
leave
too.
it to Billy to bring it home.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
just we don't know what we're going to be faced with. Just leaving here tonight or in the morning. So just I
We
don't
know
know.
what we're about to be faced with, don't we, Rick the Third?
Oh, all day long, all night.
We're about to
Oh.
get 50-mile, 60-mile-an-hour winds and rain
Hurricanes
our
and
way.
rain.
So,
The place where I honeymooned, Sanibel Island, was destroyed.
did you see the causeway?
It did. I did.
Gosh, we went there as I was a child. I was like, I crossed. Oh my god!
Yeah, Hurricane Ian decimated it.
Oh,
It's
That's
not
how much
far-
this podcast meant to me.
Yeah, that he
During
drove in
a hurricane.
He's driving in a hurricane.
Yeah.
Well,
But what
thank
y'all
you.
couldn't see when
Upstate South Carolina, folks.
He's in the
well, he's
middle.
actually in the Midlands.
No, I'm in the middle.
Columbia.
He's in the Midlands.
I'm in the middle.
What y'all couldn't see when Billy was speaking and he went, "Yes, Queen." Rick the Third over here was like fangirl. He's like,
that's funny.
it was so great.
Yes.
It was so
Man.
great.
What about you, Rick? What did
Yeah.
you think of Esther? It took us. When did we start
92
this?
weeks.
Like
Yeah.
in 2019.
14 weeks of
Speaking of small things, though, Ralph brought up something.
Speaking of
about-
small things,
But like Ralph was talking about when you came into his life,
Yeah.
and it was the same way with me. I just I hadn't seen you in a couple of years, and I just came over to. Was there a reason I came over? I mean, of course, we think
We hung
that,
out.
Yeah. It was. I think I came over and you're
We
like,
were going to go bowling.
yeah,
We were
no. I came over to your apartment at the time.
We were going bowling,
and I
right?
think
Oh, no, that's right.
no.
We
I
came
came
to hang
over and you were like, bro, and I was like, nah, bro, and then you was
You're
like,
like,
bruh,
bruh.
and then we
Like,
just
what's up,
talked,
bruh?
and then Holly showed up and you're like, bro, out, So get out of here, bro.
Get out of here, you loser.
Yeah, it's
Hit the road,
Jack.
enough talking. So,
ya, bro.
I mean, and then we started this.
Yeah.
And we got a whole drove of asses with
I
us.
know.
man.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
just like,
but before that, we even filmed at your place.
well, yeah, but
Yeah.
No, yeah, we did that thing at the
at Sawmill,
Yeah.
we did all kinds of
I was looking at
crazy
that
stuff
footage
down
the
there.
other
Very
day.
first project that I ever had recorded in my life, Andy Bishop did.
And you
back
borrowed
in-
my boat.
I did, the Bazinga. The very first thing I ever recorded in my life,
Really?
ever, was called The Fishers of Men. And I had Ryan Whitted. It was a spoken
Oh, yeah.
poem that I wrote, and you
my God.
recorded it. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
How long
and that
ago
was
that?
1997, 98.
Wow, Andy, and you're
25
still
years.
and Andy's a disciple, whether he likes it or not. Yeah,
It really is.
yeah. I mean,
I'm a
yeah.
Welchian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Really is.
So what did I think? I
yeah, what
guess
do you think of Esther?
The thing about Esther, the thing that I learned the most about it is when you don't see God there, he's there. Because even though his name isn't in there, and we found it in the Hebrew, but in the English, it's not there. But even though his name isn't in there, in the English, he's right there. And when his people needed him the most, and it seemed like it was the worst, he was there. And the enemy wanted to destroy his people completely. And I can really understand that. I can understand how the enemy wants to destroy the people of this particular God. And then to see it all be a reversal of fortune on the enemy. It reminds me so much of what Christ did for me in the world that I was born in. I was born into a chaotic world that was very difficult. I'm very fortunate at the age that I'm at, but I'll knock on wood because life can change at the drop of a hat. I'm very fortunate the life that I have right now, but I wasn't born into the same life that I have today. And I had a moment in my life when it felt like the world was coming down on me and that everything was working against me and I was never going to be able to climb out. And then suddenly he gave me this reversal of fortune. And I was introduced to Christ and he defeated my enemies. And then he gave me a family, And I celebrate that just like they do Purim. That's what I see. I see Christ all over that story. And I see redemption, and I see God's sovereign will and the love for his people.
Well, that's the theme of the whole Bible. From
It
beginning to
is.
end is redemption.
It is. Yeah, what do they call it? The scarlet thread of redemption that runs through the scripture.
Well,
Yeah.
the Feast of Lots or the Purim, when's the next time in the Bible we read about people casting lots?
The disciples?
I think at the foot of the cross.
Yeah, I was thinking at the
For his
cross.
clothes.
Yeah,
For the
It's for the
clothing.
clothes of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they're cast lots for
Yeah,
his
so-
garments.
You're right. The casting lots for his garments.
Wonder who got that one.
Huh. Wow.
Wonder what became of that guy.
We don't know. It's not in the Bible. Who?
No.
No. It was just one of the soldiers.
One of the soldiers got it. They cast lots for it because it was a perfectly made. It had no seam,
Right.
and it was perfectly made.
And it wasn't torn.
It wasn't torn.
Yep. And so they got it. And then after that, they cast lots to name another disciple.
To name Judas's replacement.
Yeah, Matthias. Wow. Well, that's full circle, guys.
Lots of lots. Lots of lots.
Yeah, a lot can change a lot. Guys, I really appreciate you doing this study with me. It was awesome. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we brought Sarita in when we did, and you're here full time. You're not going anywhere.
Not unless
You know,
y'all kick me out. Bless your heart.
It's really cool that Charlton Rick Carter III came in. Thank you for putting that out there. That positive feedback is so nice to hear. I did absolutely select that one out because I guess we became friends on Facebook and through Berean.
Yep.
I did not know Rick, guys. I did
Nope,
not know who
not
he
at all.
was
Not
when
at
he
all.
sent that message. I had
There's
no
not
clue.
a Rick club out there.
There will be.
Well, he lives in Columbia, but he grew up in Bel Air.
Yeah. Can you do the Charlton? You've never heard that joke before. No, but
Well, no, we've made it when there's a subreddit.
yeah. So, but Rick, thanks for coming all the way up
I
here.
loved it every bit.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. We'll have to have you back up here again.
I'd love to.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful.
I'm sure he's got a testimony he can tell.
Oh,
Yeah, would you like to come back
absolutely.
and share your testimony?
Sure.
Well, then we'll do that. That's a good
Yay.
idea. We'll get you on the schedule.
Oh, I'd
Not
love it.
another hurricane. We'll wait till that.
Wait till it'll come
Well,
quick.
we're booked out till January, so it'll at least be then. But Ralph, Billy, Rick,
Represent.
Sarita, Cherry, Andy,
Later.
all of you.
Esther.
We have completed. Yeah. Yes, Queen!
Nice.
We've finally completed the Esther series. We will be getting into the book of Hebrews. Guys, you won't hear that until January. However, we have tons of episodes coming out. We have Gary DeMar coming. We have Dave Cristiano coming. And that's why I wanted to mention his name right at the end. Dave Cristiano and Rich Cristiano have put out a film called Mind Reader. That movie comes out October the 25th. And if you will go to mindreadermovie.com, you will see that they're putting in 25 theaters across the U.S. If you will look and see if there's a theater near you, I'm urging you to go and see this film. The Cristianos are a rare breed. These men, you met Dave, Andy.
Yep.
You met him right here in the studio. He is a sincere man. He loves the Lord, and he makes sure to share the gospel in everyone. And he's not doing it in a way that beats you over the head or makes you feel guilty or makes you feel threatened. He's telling you that there's mercy and grace and love for those who are hurting. That's what he talks about. And mindreadermovie.com. If you'll go to that, see if there's a theater near you.
Where's the nearest one to us?
I think he's getting ready to put one out in Mount Juliet, which is not far from Nashville. I know that. Are you looking at it right now, Sarita?
I am.
Are there any theaters near us?
It's probably going to be like big markets first.
I'm still going to have Nashville as my territory, and I'm going to need to visit. Tell me when.
Yeah, it
That would
tells
be
you when
something.
the movie's coming out. I believe it's October 25th and those 25 or 27th.
It's October 21st in Sydney, Nebraska.
Okay.
And then Decatur, Alabama.
When is Decatur?
Decatur is October 24th at the AMC. There's Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, which I think is like near Savannah.
Savannah.
Mount Juliet, Tennessee.
That's the one I was talking about.
That's on October 27th.
Yeah.
I'll be in Orlando.
Okay.
Hattiesburg, Germantown, Tennessee.
Okay.
That's on the 7th of November. Nowhere close to us. That's as close as it gets.
Looks like we're going to Nashville, suckers.
Germantown.
What day is that on?
Monday the 7th.
In Mount
of
Juliet.
November. No, Juliet was the 27th, Thursday. I think we're
recording that night.
day.
Yeah, when that opens.
What about Germantown?
Monday the 7th.
We might be able to make that one. Anyway, guys, go to mindreadermovie.com.
If you go to the Hattiesburg, Mississippi one, Rich Cristiano will be there.
If you want to meet Rich Cristiano. Great guys. The
we should just
Cristianos-
follow him around for a little while.
Yeah, we should.
Stalk him.
The Grateful Living.
Wow.
That was a good one. Jeez. So anyway, yeah, mindreadermovie.com. Go check them out, guys, and see them local. Obviously, you can see all of their films on YouTube. They stream Christian movies. Go search Christian movies on YouTube. All of the movies. Remember the Goal, The Perfect Score. I'm actually in his next film. It'll be coming out very soon. Yeah. What do you think about that, sucker? Anyway, and he'll be, his episode will be coming out pretty soon. We got Brian Godawa coming out, the Christian science fiction author. Mike Sullivan came back and he did the episode with us about the 9th part of all of it, which was the expansion of Revelation, which is the expansed Olivet Discourse. Pretty good stuff coming up in the next few weeks, guys.
And if you like scary movies, go to Tacky Tie Films, and you can see a couple of Christian scary films there.
Yeah, Still Waters and Witch. They are there on that website. If you want to learn about serial killers and witches, there's a Christian message at the end of it. All right, guys. Well, we will talk to you next time on the Burrows of Berea. See ya.
Bye, y'all.
Hey, guys. This is Rick from the Burrows of Berea. Do you know how much blood, sweat, and tears it takes to make a podcast? None. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost a lot. And so if you guys don't mind, if anybody would like to give to help us with these episodes, it would be great. We'll put out even more content. And if you go to our Patreon page, just search for the Burrows of Berea, you'll get extra notes, extra episodes, and it's pretty much free. $1 gets you a lot. Thanks, guys. Andy, are we rolling?
Yes, sir, you are. You're also loud. We're turning Rick down.
Come
a little bit.
Come on, man.
Proud.
Well, I like it. I think that's great about you, how loud you are.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have more than one?
We're doing Esther first, right?
One of the,
Don't
one
put
of
me
the,
on the spot.
He said one of the favorite.